Hi everyone, my name is Yana and welcome to my channel. I'm a mom of a 2-year-old girl, and in this video I want to talk about things that have surprised me about having kids in America compared to my home country. As you can probably tell by my accent, I was not born and raised here. I have moved here when I was 21 and I have spent most of my youth here, and I have kids here, but I grew up in a completely different culture and completely different environment, and there was a lot of things that actually surprised me in a good and not so good ways, and I think it's an interesting topic to talk about and just see how people go around having kids and raising kids in two different worlds. I'll give a little bit of a background story. I was born and raised in Belarus. It's a country in Eastern Europe. And to make it more plausible, I'm gonna just mention that I have had my daughter 2 years ago, and one of my best friends that lives back home had her daughter 3 weeks apart. So our motherhood journey was kind of going hand in hand with each other, and we've been sharing a lot of things that we've been going through here and there. So I do have a relevant example to compare to. My introductions are always so long, but I'm just gonna try and cut it shorter and just jump straight into the video. I even made notes just so I don't forget or ramble for too much. And if you're interested in part 2, please let me know in the comment and I will definitely think about more things, because I'm sure I just scratched the surface with the ones that just came up to my mind recently. And the first thing that I felt like was different is the announcing the pregnancy. Back home, people don't announce their pregnancy until they're literally showing. You can't hide this anymore. They're usually trying to keep it a secret for as long as possible, and I think it's more cultural. People are just very superstitious there. They don't want to overshare outside the family circles, and sometimes even the family circle is not included fully until it's like later on. Even my mom, when I found out I was pregnant, was urging me to just keep it a secret for as long as possible, where in America I've noticed people announcing their pregnancies as soon as they hit 12 weeks and sometimes earlier. Also totally understandable. You want your colleagues or your friends or people around you to know that you're pregnant, because if you're not feeling well or if you need extra support or help, you just want to be able to get it, not be judged, and just in general of people to be more mindful about your situation. I am fully on board with an American system. I would still probably wait till 12 weeks just because of the risks that are involved before 12 weeks. But after 12, all in, everybody has to know we're happy and we want to share that joy. Where back home, people literally hide it until the belly can't be hidden anymore. Here comes another thing that is completely different. It's more like an American culture. It's a big thing, and I love this tradition also. I would love people back home to adopt this as well, because I think it's very fun and it's very helpful for the parents. A baby shower is not a thing back home in Belarus, in Russia, in Ukraine. Even though we've adopted gender reveal and people do the parties to find the gender of the baby shower is not there, because traditionally it's believed that you shouldn't buy things for the baby until the baby is actually born, which creates way more problems, I would say, because then with the baby you have to buy a stroller, a crib, and everything else. It just adds more pressure on the parents. And it's also creating a thing when all of your relatives want to gift things to the baby and they want to visit, and you're there with a newborn not ready to host. So I would have loved if we had something like a baby shower, but again, I think it's more connected to the superstition that people believe that it will bring bad luck if you buy something before the baby is born and something might happen to the baby. Whereas here, you're being celebrated as a mom before your baby's here, and I think it's beautiful, because not only it's nice to have everything set up before the kid is actually here, but it's also really nice to have that little celebration of you as a mom before the baby's here. You're the center of attention, you're taking pictures, your friends are there, you're opening gifts. It's really nice and form tradition that I think is amazing, to be honest. And on this part, I am also siding with my Americanized side. However, back home, women stop working or stop going to work officially. They hit their maternity leave that starts when you hit your 7 months mark. They don't work past 7 months. I won't say absolutely everyone, but majority, and on the government level in Belarus, as soon as you hit 7 months, you are officially allowed to stop working and your maternity leave starts. You can spend the time home, you can rest, and as we know, as mothers that have been pregnant, those last couple months are the toughest ones physically, mentally, and in general. You have so much to do. You want to nest, you want to rest, you want to spend time with your friends and family before you will be locked away for a few months with your newborn, which is a beautiful stage. But still, I feel like in America, culturally, working until your due date or going on a maternity leave a week earlier, 2 weeks earlier, it's just a little rough. And I think we need to work on that as a society. And I don't think it's anything to be proud of, because yes, pregnancy is not a disease, but it is a condition that puts us in a position when we need extra support. And we're not being weak for asking for help or for using that support. And I think it is not fair to treat people that never have kids and never go through that, aka men, the same way as a pregnant woman, because it's not the same. It's literally two life walking in one body. So I would have loved if we had the same opportunity without it affecting our leave and stay time with the baby. I know that we can go on leave earlier, but then most of the time it messes up with the amount of time we can spend with the baby after, and a lot of people don't want to do that. And I think it's also not fair because the babies are so tiny. You just need to spend more time with them before you can go back to work, physically, mentally, and emotionally as well. And another huge benefit that my home country has is that maternity leave can last up to 3 years. You don't have to take the whole maternity leave if you have an option to, and your job has to keep your spot available for you to come back. And I think it's beautiful because I live in Massachusetts, so far for now has the longest maternity leave, and that maternity leave is 6 months. You feel a little lucky compared to the rest of the states that you have 6 months paid leave, but then you know a different reality, and that many European countries have a maternity leave for at least a year. It kind of breaks my heart because I do remember myself going back to work when my baby was around 6 months old, and I was completely heartbroken because I wasn't ready. I didn't feel ready emotionally, physically. I honestly don't understand how you are supposed to keep breastfeeding if you're being separated with your child such a long hours multiple times a week. So yeah, kind of a sad part on the American side. Like I said, my daughter is 2.5 years old right now, and my friend's daughter is about the same age, and she is still on the maternity leave. She's gonna go back to work in 6 months, and her daughter will be fully ready to go to the kindergarten. The next thing is labor in the America and back home. I would categorize American labor as a high-notch, super private, excellently treated labor that you would have to arrange back home. If you don't know, most of the countries in Eastern Europe, we have a universal health care. So it is free, but it is more like a conveyor. It's a lot of women going in labor almost at the same time. There is no private rooms or any special treatment unless you arrange for that in advance. They do have some like packages that you can pay for and have a single room and have a doctor to yourself and a midwife and everything, but most of the time it's just like a public healthcare space with a lot of pregnant women with the separate rooms for birthing women, but they will come back to the main room, like a shared room, after they have a baby, so everybody can kind of go into labor. And also it's a lot of mistreatment of women in labor. It's honestly a sad part, and I just feel like the people in healthcare, their resources are just stretched so much for the amount of people that they get, that at some point they just get desensitized. And most of the time your labor is not a magical experience like I, for example, experienced here, and it is nothing special, and a lot of people go through that and they don't want to go through the labor and delivery again because they kind of traumatized, or they have to, or they like urge to pay for it in order to get more private treatment and better better staff and better resources available to them. Same with epidurals, same for pushing natural labor over everything and doing C-sections only when it's deemed to be done necessary, which can also lead to like overweighting and affecting the cases to be negatively impacted by that. So that part is a little sad. I would say in nursing profession is also completely different there. It's like a different world. So I am extremely happy that I was able to have my baby here and I had a wonderful experience, not traumatizing at all. I did have an epidural. It was a natural birth, but I do feel strongly that I'm not scared to go back and have another one, which I cannot say the same thing about my friend, unfortunately. However, after you have your baby, your experience becomes completely different. You're never made to go to the doctor's office for visits with your newborn like we were forced to do when she was born. I remember we had an appointment 2 days after the birth, then 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, so you're constantly driving and going to the hospital with your baby. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of stressful in the beginning, especially doing it on my own with the first child, driving far away, going to the hospital, the baby's crying, you're stressed out. It was a lot. On the other hand, back home, they have a designated home healthcare nurse that's doing visits according to the child's age, and you don't have to go anywhere. They're coming there, they're ready to consult you on the breastfeeding, they're ready to assess your baby and administer any necessary vaccines. They're there as a resource to help you figure out your routine with the baby, and I think it's just so much more convenient and so much more efficient that way, and helps to take the load off of the new moms, making them go to the hospital with their brand new baby all the time. Another thing that I have noticed that's been very different here and back home is sleeping and breastfeeding. On the co-sleeping part, here it's very much urged to put the baby in their separate crib, in the separate space, never co-sleep, where at home actually is more prevalent that the mothers are urged to co-sleep with the babies until they're older or old enough to be able to do it on their own. But the only difference is that there are like co-sleeping rules that you have to follow or be mindful that you wouldn't hurt the baby if you do that. Culturally, it's just more acceptable, and this is just how it's been done. A lot of the times the dads have to go to a different room or on the couch, but it's way more common to see co-sleeping back home than here. It's almost never, or it's usually people from different cultures, or people just don't tell in the fear of being judged, which is understandable. I just thought it was worth mentioning. And another thing is that I think is a little bit too much back home is an obsession with breastfeeding, to the point that mothers almost being shamed for not breastfeeding, or being shamed into breastfeeding regardless of all other circumstances that they have to go through in order to be able to breastfeed. Formula is not encouraged at all, not only because it is expensive, but also just because sometimes I would hear that the moms would say they've been called lazy for not breastfeeding when they're might be having completely different issues and it's just not happening. Also, pumping is not as prevalent there. It's just like everything is for breastfeeding. It's like Mother Nature made you. You have to do it, and if you're not doing, there's something wrong with you. Here, you're more free to do whatever. I wouldn't say that you're encouraged to give formula to your baby, but it's completely normal here, and you're also given so many options. You can pump, you can breastfeed, you can do both, you can do formula, and nobody's judging you because it's just like the choices that you have. Where there it's like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you breastfeeding? What's wrong with your baby? Why aren't they taking your boob? It's a little ridiculous, I think. What I'm noticing, a lot of people that I know from back home, they breastfeed for a long time, and I mean obviously 3 years maternity leave allows you to establish breastfeeding if it's going successfully and breastfeed your babies until they're 1 or 2 years old. Where here, if you're only home for a few months and then you're forced to go back, it's impossible to do that. Just impossible. Some babies still figure out to do that, but most of the time it's when your breastfeeding journey ends. At least that's how it happened to me. Yeah, another thing that I've noticed that's been a little bit different here and there is the grandparents' involvement in the child's life, starting from the birth and then going on and off. I have seen a lot of Americans' families that have involved grandparents from one or the other side or from both sides, but majority, I would say, the families that are not as much involved, and they do see as a baby as an additional chore that they can help couple with or not, but they're not as involved, where until the child goes to the kindergarten or until the child grows up mostly, home, the grandparents at least used to be one of the main caregivers along with the parents. You would spend hours with your grandparents and it wasn't considered an option, and it wasn't considered a chore or like it's something unusual. It was more unusual if you weren't in touch with your grandparents or if you weren't seeing them as often unless they live far away. Yeah, like a little difference that I noticed, but now the more people that I know are having babies, I can see that it's more like a 50-50. Some families are more involved and some families are very formal. They'll take their grandchild for a play date or for a few hours or for the afternoon, and then the child gets handed to the parents as a primary caregiver, which was kind of new to me because I've never seen that model of functioning inside the family. And the last thing that I want to talk about today is the childcare. That's been a huge topic of me and my friends discussing because all of us are using different options. Some of us are bringing their parents to help, some of us having nannies, some of us sending their kids to the daycare since they were little, some of us staying home and trying to juggle our work schedule around childcare. But in general, I have noticed that here is a huge lack of resources and support for parents with kids until they're school age. Kindergartens and daycares are super expensive. It's really not available to the majority of the people, or you end up working to pay for it. Where at home you have a strong support as a maternity leave that you can keep up to 3 years, or you can even go back to work earlier. But as soon as you go back to work, you have a kindergarten available to you, and kindergarten is really a part of a school system that is funded by the government, and the fee that you pay monthly is so small that it's like really doesn't even hurt the budget at all. It's barely noticeable compared to the United States, where like a chair can cost you like two or one, at least one rent on top of your other expenses. So I think that's it. I think that's all that I wanted to talk about today. Please let me know down in the comments if you want me to think about part 2, because I think there is more things that I can talk about. Also, feel free to ask any questions. I'd love to talk about these topics more in the comments, and if you're from a different culture, I would love to hear about your observations on the differences between having kids in the United States and having kids abroad. I would love to hear your perspective. Also, if you like topics like this, I think I'm gonna dig in deeper on the motherhood topic from the immigrant perspective. So feel free to subscribe, and thank you so much for giving thumbs up to this video if you did. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!